Also going to record this. Hello and welcome to another session in the Inner Sanctum online sessions. Music playing in the background. Let me just change that music. Great to be with you all again. And today we've got Penny Kelly back in the house. Yay! Welcome, Penny.
It's good to be here. I'm really glad. It's been such a long time. I don't know if we can squeeze it all in, but we're going to do our best. So,
yeah, exactly. We've already been having a chat, and Daphne had said to me, what do you want to talk about this time round? Because I've had Penny on the show, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and we've discussed the robes, the book, The Robes, a lot. I know that you've written many books. I'll read your bio in a minute for people that don't know you. But I was watching some of your latest shows, some of your latest look-sees and stuff like that lately, and it seems pertinent to talk about what the robes have been talking about again because of what we've been through in the last couple of years. Because, what they said, what is it, 40 years ago when they first came to you is coming true.
Yeah. A lot of it. Yeah, it bothers me a little bit when I go back and look at the book and think, oh yeah, they said that too. And then I'll pick it up a week or 2 weeks later. Oh yeah, they said that too. It's all unfolding. It's really, I don't know if it's heartening or disheartening to see so many things they warned about. Because the good things are not quite here yet, but they're coming.
Well, the good things aren't nearly here yet. And I think that for everybody listening to this, for everyone on the planet right now, we are the midwives for birthing that new reality, and we may never live to see it. We might never live to see that reality grow up into adulthood, but we are definitely birthing that, because we've all got a really big role to play in this. Everyone, especially people that are tuned into this, even people that have never heard of Penny Kelly before. This conversation has been talked about with almost everybody I talk to on the shows. We'll get into it, but let me just read a little bit about you for people that don't know you. I've called this Memories from the Future. I saw that on something recently, and I thought, that's what we're going to talk about, memories from the future. So Penny Kelly is an enlightenment teacher, writer, consciousness teacher, contactee, author, publisher, researcher, consultant, naturopathic physician, and director of Lily Hill Farm. A gifted teacher, Penny facilitates courses in developing intuition, the gifts of consciousness, getting well again naturally, and organic gardening. She maintains a worldwide counselling and coaching practice and travels. Well, I don't suppose you've been traveling widely over the last couple of years.
Not very much. No.
This bio is like over 2 years old before they locked us all in.
Right.
You've been traveling throughout the internet widely speaking and teaching. Actually, your work has really expanded exponentially with the help of Daphne, exponentially over the last couple of years online. Sorry, the cat's just jumping all over me as usual. So you were an engineer for the Chrysler Corporation in Detroit in the 70s, and you left that in 1979 to study the brain, consciousness, intelligence, intuition, perception, and cognition, which led to your work in schools and corporations as an educational consultant, specializing in accelerated brain-compatible learning techniques. And what was Lefty? Who was it that you were working with in the lab? Lefty, what was his name? Levengood?
Yeah, Dr. Levengood.
Dr. Levengood.
Yeah.
And he was, what sort of scientist was he? Because you and he worked together for what, 20 years? You and he?
15.
15 years.
He was a biophysicist. And he was amazing. He was amazing. He was the first scientist, real scientist, to say to the crop circle people, hey, why don't you send me some samples? Let me see if I can see anything. Why would all those plants lay down? And he ended up uncovering the truth about crop circles, which was pretty amazing, very amazing, in fact. So.
Well, interestingly enough, I just watched you and Patty Greer with on Rumble. That show, what was the guy?
Michael Jaco.
Michael Jaco, talking about the crop circles. And
Right.
so Patty came out and said it's the earth making them, and then other people said it's the ETs making them, and then there was this like argument about who's making them. So I said to the guides, so who's right? And they laughed. And they said, they thought that was hilarious that we were arguing about who was making them. They said, well, if you're going to tattoo somebody, don't you get their permission to do it? Isn't there like a relationship between you and the person you're tattooing? So of course there's a relationship between the ETs and the earth if they're going to, you know, like it's a relationship. So it's both of them making them. Anyway, that was what I got. What about
some of them are really the result of our own consciousness. Most of them are just random mathematical, beautifully mathematical. People do not realize how beautiful math is and the designs that it creates naturally. You see it in Mother Nature all around you, but people don't, we're not very close to nature right now. So yeah, but most of it is just patterns coming out of the earth and interacting with the atmosphere, plasma vortices. Everything's made of plasma. So the patterns form.
Interesting, which is what Patty was talking about. And that was a lovely show with you and Patty and Michael, actually. Yeah, did you do that recently?
Yeah, I'm gonna say within the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And to finish your bio, you've written a slew of books: The Evolving Human, The Elves of Lily Hill Farm, Robes, a book of coming changes, which is my favorite, Getting Well Naturally, again, naturally from the soil to the stomach, Consciousness and Energy, Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you came out with 5, which was the Trump, the Sting, Catastrophe, Cycles and Consciousness. Have you written another one since then?
Well, no, not in the Consciousness and Energy series. I switched to planet kind of issues, so I have Planet Earth. And then just last night or this morning at 3 a.m., I uploaded The Revival, Path to a New Earth, New Human. So
wow,
on its way through the printing processes. So will be available soon. And it's a different kind of book from what I usually write. But I felt like actually there's a whole story behind that. There's how it came to be written.
Well, let's hear it. I want to hear it. I want to hear about the new book because it'll lead into the, what we are going to discuss today. Tell us the story behind it.
In 2020, I think it was in July 2020, I don't talk too much about my own contact experiences, but I'll just say that I'm here as part of a team, and we are working to help the people of planet Earth make this shift in consciousness. And so my job is teach the world about the mind and consciousness. So in July of 2020, I started having this weekly meeting. I would go to bed at night, go to sleep, and find myself in the middle of the night at some meeting talking about some aspect of life on planet Earth. And there were different aspects. Each week we covered a different aspect. And after 12 weeks, I think there was one more meeting, and they said, okay, now don't forget everything that we've covered here. We have 12 sectors. We want you to present this to the population along with all of this perspective and blah, blah, blah. And so that last meeting was just as clear as a bell. I thought, what have we been doing? So I thought that the conversations, which were kind of dreamlike, were just conversations. So one was about governance, and one was about science, and another one was about the arts and medicine, education, humanity and society. So that there were 12 sectors. And at that point, I thought, oh, there's a plan here. So then I thought, okay, let me put together a PowerPoint, and I presented that last year in Berkeley Springs at a transition talk put on by the Arlington Institute. And there was quite a bit of feedback from that. People saying, are you going to write some more? Can we get a copy of that? And so I ended up writing a book, which I just finished, just uploaded this morning at 3 a.m. And so it covers those 12 sectors. And then last night, actually, when I got all done, and I was like, oh my God, it's done. Finally. I just happened to be looking at the lights around my own hand, because my shoulder and my arm was really sore from when you do the final proofreading. It's pretty intense. You're reading every single word in the book, 2 words at a time, without stopping until you read the entire 290 pages. And I was, really stiff from that. And while I was looking at my hand, all of a sudden I could see like the entire planet in my hand, and all of these energies were moving. And I thought, it was such a shock that I thought, oh, wow, I think this might affect the earth. I might have done something to actually wake up a few more people or encourage a few more people. A lot of people are awake, but they don't know how to get where they want to go. And so it tried to bring up a lot of questions. The book is half questions. So, yeah. So that's the story. And the feeling was one of, okay, I did present everything that we covered in those meetings. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll be helpful.
Well, you say that you don't talk about your galactic, I'm just adding much, but except with me, because I'm always quizzing you about it.
Yeah, Daphne pushes a little too. Daphne pushes a lot. So I'm getting more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I see Don smiling there. He understands exactly what you're talking about, don't you, Don? Yeah. When I was chatting, do you want to? Have you got a question for Penny? No. Okay. When I had Don on the show last week, he was saying he did these little things, and I said, if these were the little things, what are the big things? And he's like, oh God, how do I say this without sounding sort of like, just like what you're talking about
there.
Yeah.
My instructions for a long time were stay under the radar. If you speak up too soon, they'll take you out in a hot second. And then finally, I stayed under the radar for a very long time, very on purpose. And then it was October 2018. All of a sudden, one of my people showed up in my bedroom and said, go. And at that point, it was like, oh, okay. And I had started to get a lot of invitations and was trying to back out of those and realized, oh, I shouldn't be backing out. So things kind of took off at that point, and my kids have adjusted pretty much. Although one of my kids said to me, I liked it a lot better, Mom, when you were just our mom and not the mother for the whole world. And I just chuckled. I said, well, you have to share. You need to learn to share. My kids are all in their 50s. So they've had plenty of TLC and attention and what have you.
Yes, they have. They've had plenty of Penny Kelly mom. God, they're in their 50s. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So are you a great grandma? Are you a great grandma?
Yeah, I am. I'm almost 75. So
well, that's young to be a grandma. I think that's young. Anyway, my parents.
Well, I started early.
Yeah, you started early.
Early. And then my kids started early. And so
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mom started late and I started late. Yeah. But, this is one of the questions I wanted to pose, because a lot of the people that are attracted to the work that I'm putting out, probably the work that you're putting out, are older, 50, 60, 70, some of them not. I know some of you online are like 30s, 40s. I actually hang out with a lot of, in the conscious community here in Sydney, a lot of young people. They're dancing, they're singing, they're meditating, they're doing ayahuasca, they're doing the Wim Hof, ice thing, that like they're all into it.
Yeah.
But the people
good.
I'm attracting, in this work and this discussion are older. And we were just talking about before we started live streaming, that the robes had said to you that your work would be when you're older.
Yeah.
And I was told that too, that I would be older. And I thought older meant 40. And then I thought maybe 50. And now I'm, 60s. It's like, what is older? But with what can we do as part of the shift into the new reality, as an older generation? What is our role for people that don't see themselves as you or I, like as teachers out there on YouTube and doing courses and stuff? What do you think the role of the older generation is to help us shift into a new?
If I had to answer that in a nutshell, I would say it's getting some of the infrastructure in place. So I work with a lot of people that are working on big projects, These are people who have had a lot of money. And I think this is worth mentioning. There are wonderful people out there in the world who are extremely wealthy, billionaires, and they are looking for people who are honorable, people who have ideas, people who can make things work, people who know how to get things done. And so I just, I have to say that the division between the billionaires who aren't very nice, who are really trying to get rid of us, and the billionaires who are saying, where are the people that I can give some money to, or that I can fund, or that I can help, or get started, or whatever. There's been this long period of not wanting to put money into anything because big money being transferred was stolen by the big banks, to put it bluntly. And so nobody was wanting to transfer big sums, $1 million sums, because it disappeared in transit. And that was really discouraging and really aggravating. So now, for 10, maybe 15 years, I've been saying to people, come on, we have to build things now. We can't wait until stuff falls apart, or we won't be able to get supplies. People will be too distracted. We'll lose people and their expertise. So finally now there are people setting up infrastructures that I think are really helpful. One of the things that I really like is the seeds infrastructure. They are setting up cryptocurrencies for the new communities, and they're networking all around the planet. I'm working with a group called the World Council of Ethics. This is something the Robes asked me to start, and I was like, I don't have any idea how to do something like that. But here I am, here I am. So a little story behind that. Even in 2020, I think it was in December of 2020, I was waked up at 3 a.m. Wake up, write this down. I had a whole bunch of stuff I was going to be doing the next day. I did not want to wake up. So I go away. I'm trying to sleep. And no, wake up, write this down. So I wrote down, they dictated, I wrote. And then got to the end, they said, okay, send it to these people. And so I wrote down the names real quick. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. But I read the letter the next day and thought, oh, wow, this is an invitation to the World Council of Ethics. And then the instructions were, send this out, invite these people, and have your first meeting by February 14th, 2021. And I was a little shy about sending the letter out, but I sent it and people said yes. And so we met. The first year was kind of almost a waste of time because we only met every 2 months. And the questions that we were asking ourselves were big questions. What does it mean to be human? And then now we're working on what are ethics? What is an ethical world? How does an ethical world look, sound, operate, etc.? And so we're setting up a system of review that, according to the robes, will become the future system of justice. And it's a system that operates completely differently from what we have now. And so there's another woman that has been working for many years, bringing networks of people together. There's people like yourself that are teaching, bringing people together, getting them to talk, realizing I'm not the only one out here thinking like this, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that I can see it now. I couldn't see it 10 years ago, but I can see the basic outlines, just those early threads of the new earth, new human. I've been visiting the new earth for quite a while now. Have written some of that down. It's really kind of interesting, surprising. And I think I spent the last year just focusing for my own personal self. What is the difference between the third dimensional system, a fourth dimensional system, and a fifth dimensional system? Because I hear people talk about, oh, I'm just going to 5D. And I think, what is that? Do you know what you're talking about? And so in my typical stubborn, Irish way, I just thought, okay, let me go visiting. So I started visiting groups and just trying to observe what is different about these people. Why are they so much more advanced than we are? And so I came up with some criteria, and that has been really helpful for me to understand the basic differences between 3D, 4D, and 5D. We are not, there might be one or two, maybe three people here on the planet that could move right to 5D. But most of the rest are going to have to evolve into a fourth dimensional consciousness before they can even think about 5D. So we're moving along. I see now, I was really kind of hopeless even just a few weeks ago. And now I'm thinking, I see it. I see now that things are beginning to come together. Groups are starting, they're working. Nobody's paying them. Nobody's saying, do this. They're putting their information out there. They're starting to connect with others. Another gal is working with families, doing amazing work with families, Family Restoration Center. So, the pieces are coming together. Daphne and I are just about to launch our platform. It's called COCO. It stands for Community of Consciousness Online. And it's a school where people can come and learn. And, and it's got the social aspect as well. So they can chat and send messages and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really pretty excited about what I see unfolding. And I see all of the bad, what do I call it? The stuff that nobody likes. I see that all happening. And lately, how would I describe that? Lately, it looks like I'm looking through something that's almost transparent and has no meat on the bones of it. That whole structure, it has no meat. It's about to collapse to a skeleton. and I don't know how that's going to happen, but I see it coming. And I think, okay, You earned it, you people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate.
Yeah, exactly.
And find people to help, don't focus on so much on how it's going to make you money, because that's where, I was rereading some of the robes this morning, and like that whole, how am I going to get rich out of this? How am I going to be successful? How am I going to make money out of this? Is the thought that often just brings people down.
That's right.
It limits you. And if you put an intention out, like, how can I make a difference? How can I help? How can I contribute? How can I focus on what I want instead of focusing on what I don't like? Then that energy just takes you places, and money comes. If you need money, money will be there for you. Like, if you find yourself stuck, somebody will say, here, let me give you some money. It's like, it's magic how it all happens. If we stop focusing on how to make money. It really is. And and focus more on how can I help? How can I serve? So what I've seen in the last couple of years, Penny, is I've seen these amazing, spiritual, beautiful people get all up in their business about, what's going on, because the distortion is being revealed. And then everyone's screaming about it, and everyone's like literally screaming about it. And that doesn't help. I mean, okay, like, it's shocking. It can be shocking. What, really? And I get upset, and I'm like, oh, really? This is so ridiculous. How ridiculous. I get all up in my head about it, but that doesn't help. And focusing on what is possible does help. Like, yeah.
I think that's really true. I think one of the things that is happening that I think will take us another step into that new earth, new human, is I've been talking for a year with a guy who is connected to a whole bunch of investors that are looking to build, I'm not sure what to call it, communities, the communities of the future. Literally buy the land, build the houses, put people in them. And that concept of how do we build these self-sufficient, self-supporting, self-regenerating communities and homes that people of like mind who want to live in a self-sufficient, peaceful kind of way, how do we do that? Where do we do that? And so they're not quite ready to make that investment yet, but I think that's coming. And it's close. It's very close. And once we start building those homes, communities of the future that are designed with some really important things in mind: food, healing, materials, spatial arrangements, all kinds of things like that. I just think that some of the older houses are going to lose their magic. Some of the older communities will lose their people, and the cities, I don't know what I can say about the cities. But most of those cities, when you go ahead, when you go quite a ways ahead into the future, what you see is that there are no cities. You can see the remains of the cities that we have now, but that's not the way people live in the future. And I think that that's something that we need to ask ourselves is can we live and bring a new consciousness into old material in an old setting that has so many energies, frequencies in it that are destructive and competing and that just don't work together anymore. So that's a big question. That is a big issue.
So
that we're going to have to deal with.
Haven't read the book, The Robes, or Robes, the Book of Coming Changes, A Book of Coming Changes. Get it right, Karen? Yeah. Maybe we should outline, it's a couple of questions here. They're great questions, but I'd like to just outline what the book contains, because basically it was a predictive book,
I know. Go ahead.
No, you go. What? Just to outline what the book contains, what the messages in the book are.
Okay. oh my gosh, where to begin? Okay, so the base, and this is being said now from the perspective of 40 years later, because this was unfolding in 1980, 81. And that I've gotten a little more perspective since then. I was not very ready for the robes to be coming and visiting and telling me all the things that they were showing me. But now that I look back, the first message that they had, the very first thing they showed me was the planet rolling a little bit. It reminded me of a fishing bobber. You know, when you go fishing, you have this little red and white bobber that you know, jumps up and down when a fish hooks onto it. And you know you've got a fish on the line. Well, the planet was doing that, and water was sloshing everywhere. It was a mess. And there was a tremendous amount of destruction, most of the destruction caused by the electrical grid, the nuclear power plants, and the high dams that we had constructed. And then their question was, their statement was, the earth is capable of rolling over to heal herself, and she will do that if she needs to. If you are living in such a way that you make it necessary for her to roll over, and then you've built all these systems that take you out, you know, can you think of some other way to live? Is this the only way to generate electricity? What other kinds of power are out there? And at the time, I just was at a loss. So that was the first message. Live lightly on the earth. Then they got into the whole governmental thing, and they said, you've outgrown your government. And that there were a couple of visits actually around governance and corruption. And they said that your government will be taken over by business. It will not be a happy relationship. And it will end up in World War III. However, World War III will not look like all of the other wars. It will not be characterized by big bombs and, you know, fighting in trenches and all kinds of military equipment. And they left out certain strategic pieces that I have now filled in. They said everybody will be fighting with everybody about everything. And here we are. And I think one of the things they said that I kind of poo-pooed at the time was that the downfall of government would come because of health, and that they would try to mandate that you couldn't get into a place, a restaurant, a theater, a public place, unless you could prove you were healthy. And at the time, I thought, there is no way we would put up with that. And so I realized now when I put those two things together that the World War was around health. It was started by all of the health issues. So, you know, we're in World War III right now. You know, it is based in health and biowarfare, hands down, period. Another thing that they said was that we are ruining our children, sending them to the schools that we're sending them to. We went through a whole bunch of stuff around life, children, raising children, sex, relationships, abortion. All that was one of the issues in the war, was abortion. And here we are. They overturned Roe v. Wade lately in the US. And so there were other things that they pointed out, that the financial system was pointless, that we would have to get past that. And so part of the book was this whole entry into what we were going to face in the first 25 years of the new millennium. And then the second part of the book was, and here's what you are going to end up creating. Most likely, if you take the responsibility that we're trying to teach you, which is that you create your future, which at the time I was like, don't tell me that. I was still in the victim mode or victim consciousness. Stuff happened to us. We didn't have anything to do with what happened. Well, that has long gone out the window. And I am now in this place where I'm looking at all of the things that we could create, things that we could do. I saw some amazing demonstrations of what we will learn to do with energy, with frequencies, with our technology. Amazing technology. Some people they don't like technology. I'm just going to suggest that the technology is great. It's the people running the technology that we don't like. They aren't trustworthy. They aren't good. And they do not have our best interests at heart. So the book, the overall message was, here's what you're going to face. Everything that you thought your world was made of is going to go away. Everything that used to work is going to stop. And here's what you're going to be faced with having to create. If you don't have a vision of what you could create, you won't be able to make it through the difficult times. The difficult times pretty much come to an end around 2030, somewhere in there, maybe 2028. There's some problems we have to face yet. And they said most of the, quote, nations will go away, will disappear. People will go after their national governments, and their people will have no part of that. They will reorganize into local communities. And that's the gist, just a quick overview. The book is packed because when they came around and said, can we show you some pictures? That the information in those pictures was like being force-fed through a fire hose. Just a huge, huge amount of information about every aspect of life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think I heard you say, or somebody say on a show recently, you've got to read the book at least 7 times. I agree. At least, at least 10 times.
Yeah.
There's no point just reading this stuff once. You've got to read it again and again and again, because it's so, you just can't digest all that's in it. And just like when you received it 40 years ago, I think you received it, the little men in brown robes turned up in your kitchen, that, can we show you some stuff? And you go, do you have to? And okay. And then you received it. And then 20 years later, they said, now we want you to write it down.
Yeah.
20 years later, they let you digest it for 20 years, like live for 20 years. And then
I know.
Yeah. So that's the thing about, but we're right in the thick of it. As you say, we're right. Like, it seemed impossible, I suspect, when you first.
Oh.
But
not
let me get
impossible, but ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Yes.
Why would we do that? How could that happen?
Yeah. Right. I remember a friend of mine who's, I think it was Courtney, somebody saying that they, before COVID, they had visions of seeing the planes grounded. Like, why are all the planes grounded? They couldn't understand why that was happening. Yeah. I mean, but okay. Julia has a question here. Do you want to come? Where are you, Julia? There you are. Do you want to come on camera, hun? Unmute yourself.
Hi there.
You want to come on camera? Spotlight you? Add the spotlight? Well, I've just done it.
Oh.
Do you want to ask? You're on. Your question for Penny is the new earth that you refer to similar to the same one humanity shift describing in Eckhart Tolle's book. Yeah.
Say it again. Is the new earth what?
Tolle has a book called The New Earth. In fact, I just finished it. And it sounds in your discussion you just had, it sort of sounds as though you mentioned you'd been there. It sounds as though you're talking about the same place.
And who wrote this book? What's the name of it?
Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle.
Oh yeah. I don't know about his version of the New Earth, but I do know about mine. So I
just figured that there were probably, it sounds as though they're very similar because of the consciousness that you have to experience in order to
I
Be
would
able-
imagine that that's true. Yeah, I actually wrote, I have made a number of journeys to that new earth. There's a little bit of a story behind that. When I first went to the new earth was way back in, when Kundalini first occurred back in 79. There was a period of 3 years where I did not sleep. And so I would, put myself to bed hoping to sleep. And after a couple hours, I would just slide out of the body, go up and sit on the roof and sit there all night and just watch what was happening, around me. I learned a lot about what goes on in the night. But one night I'm sitting up there and we were just down the road from Selfridge Air Force Base. And this was in Mount Clemens, Michigan. And I'm, sitting there on the roof and I see these 3 lights off to the southwest coming toward me. And I thought, oh, it's one of the planes coming into land at the Air Force Base. We were only half a mile away. And so I, sat there a little bit longer, and then I see these lights, they look a little closer, and then I see them again. And I think, I don't hear anything. And after a few minutes, I thought, okay, what is that? And I'm looking at that, and it ended up, long story short, it was 3 beings of light, amazing, luminous beings of light. And they came right over my head. And one of them reached down there, 2 of them actually reached down their hands and said, come with us. And I didn't have anything else to do. So I, reached up, took hold of their hands, thought I had been electrocuted, but hung on, and away we went. And if you've ever seen those Star Wars movies where they go to warp speed and the lights are streaking by, that's exactly what it was like. And I felt like I was dropping, like one of those Russian dolls. I was dropping all these bodies behind me. And then after a few minutes, it seemed like forever, but it was not really very long, I don't think. I see this planet in the distance. And I'm looking at that planet. We're getting closer and closer. And I'm thinking, that looks like the Earth. And we end up going to this planet, landing on the surface of the planet. And every single thing on the planet was alive. It was conscious. It was greeting me like I was an old friend. I was greeting it, even the pebbles that I was landing on, because it looked like pea gravel that we landed on right next to these beautiful, tall evergreen trees, big, tall pines. And so my first visit, we went on a tour and I got to see all kinds of things, buildings, people, fields, farms, etc. Absolutely beautiful, incredibly clean, extraordinarily well organized. Nobody was sick. Nobody was tired. Nobody was overweight. Nobody was old. Everybody was healthy and telepathic. It was an astounding experience. I ended up, they came and got me 2 more times on different nights. And the last night they said, you can stay. And I said, I just couldn't. I said, I have children. I can't. I don't want, I need to be there for my children. And so they just smiled and said, you'll be back. And I left. And sure enough, 40 years later, or maybe pretty close to 38 years later, I thought, I wonder if I can find that again. I had found it one time accidentally and thought, oh, this is that place. I didn't even have a name for it. But I then decided to try to find it on purpose, and I did. And so I've been back there. I actually wrote about, I think, 3 of the journeys, 3 of my visits back there, and what those were like in my book, Planet Earth. I got a small book I put out last year. And it's, I think the very end of the book is, though it describes those 3 visits in quite a bit of detail. And I've been back since then, and I was, back for various reasons, for different things. And actually, it was in my latest visit to that, not actually the latest, but in a recent visit, I met a group of beings, one of whom was obviously from another planet. And I was telling him I was writing this book about the paradigm shift. And he leaned over and said, call it The Revival. And just said that with such intensity that I changed the title of the book from The Paradigm Shift to The Revival. So, and that's what just got uploaded last night. So it's been a friend of mine also has asked if I, or was asked by some of our people to help build the new earth. And it's done. It's ready for people. It just needs people to attain the consciousness to go there. So.
Well, that's perfect. That dovetails into Pat's question here. Where are you, Pat? Do you want to come online and ask? Do you want to come on camera? Yeah, sure. You want to unmute yourself, honey? I'm going to add you to the spotlight.
Okay.
That totally dovetails to what you said here, Pat.
Okay, what'd you say?
Well, basically, I mean, I can come up with a lot of guesses as to what is required for 5D consciousness. However, I'm curious as to what you observed. I mean, obviously, there has to be a more loving awareness of the unity of all consciousness, but what other aspects did you notice when you were there?
Oh, wow. Actually, I was just putting notes together here. So let me share this, okay? So this is a kind of an analysis of the various dimensions and the mindset or the differences between where we are and where the next dimension, the fourth and the fifth dimensions are, okay? And maybe that will answer the question. So I'll just review. In the third dimension, we live in the third dimension. Human beings are fully physical and they're pretty dense. They're dense, the energies are densely packed. Okay, they're very competitive. They're destructive. They are utilitarian. And what that means is they use whatever material is at hand, regardless of consequences. They are aggressive. Their thinking is based on the concept of winner takes all. Their communication is limited to written, recorded, or actual voice and vision kind of things. Third dimensional people ignore or are unaware of the energy basis of all things. Now, Einstein has started that shift, but there's a lot more to that than most people are aware of. People in the third dimension are very short-lived, very short-lived. Most people only live to half their potential, their life potential. They only live to be 75. The concept in the third dimension for life is make a living. They are very individualist. It's all about the individual. The third dimension is very dark. And when you've been in other dimensions, you know exactly what that means. Their concept, their focus is the past. Everything is about the past. Many people, a huge majority of third dimensional people have a victim mentality. They are unaware of other dimensions and they are confined to the planet. Okay. Fourth dimension is still fully physical. Having babies, making love, eating dinner, stuff like that, fully physical. But they're focused, they're not competitive, they're cooperative. They are not destructive, they're corrective. So the goal is to correct the mistakes and clean up the messes. They are not utilitarian. They are what I call beginning to be generative. And that means that they create items that integrate with life in a nurturing, healthy way. They aren't aggressive at all, but they will defend themselves. They're defensive. They have weapons. They have amazing tools and technology, but only for defense. Most of it is for scientific research to get themselves further along the path. Communication is telepathic. A lot of it. They still speak, and they write and they read books, but they are telepathic as well. They are able to use and predict energy, and predict the interactions of the energy. They're very long-lived, 2 to 5 times longer than third dimensional humans. Their concept is not make a living, it's make a world. In other words, they're very focused on making or shaping the kind of world they want to have. They are not individualist only. They're more about teams and groups, but they do honor the individual. So it's individuals, teams, and groups. We have a little bit of teams and groups, but not like they do in the fourth dimension, not even close. They have access to light that we do not here. And I'll maybe say something about light in a minute. Their focus in terms of time is, time is, they're not focused on the past, they're focused on the present. They are incredibly present in the present moment. They do not have a victim mentality. What they have is personal responsibility. And that was one of the things the robes kept talking about, personal responsibility. They interact with the third dimension and a little bit with the fifth, but mostly with the third. And they are not confined to the planet. They are interplanetary. So that's fourth dimension. Fifth dimension. This people in the fifth dimension are less physically dense, quite a bit less. Okay. They are also very cooperative. They are also corrective instead of destructive. They are, where the fourth dimension is beginning generative, fifth dimension is fully generative. And that means that they create stable, healthy, beautiful environments, and they fill all needs with items generated from the field of energy around them. They don't go blowing up mountains to get coal, and they don't go, creating nuclear plants to get energy and then be stuck with the rods, et cetera, et cetera. So they're fully generative. They just create or generate what they need. They are not only defensive, but they're transdimensional. They will just move to another dimension to avoid any kind of attack. They are also based on do no harm. They are telepathic. They're also psychokinetic, which is the ability of the individual to move things, including themselves. And they are telekinetic, which means that their technology will also move things, create things, shift things, make things appear and disappear. They are able to use and create, as well as predict, energy and its interactions. When I say create, they don't create energy. They create the way that energy is going to move. They begin directing energy. They're very long-lived, and some of them are eternal. They have figured out the mechanisms of immortality. Their attitude is not make a living or even make a world, it's heal a world. They are integrative, meaning that they are one with all things. And I have to say, when you are around them for a while and you watch them, how do I say it? You watch them operate. There is this 100% expectation that everything that they look at, talk to, touch, think about is alive and conscious and responding, and it does. Everything. They are one with the entire soup. I call it the soup, the I am, the source. So I call that, they're integrative, one with all things. They don't just have access to light, they give off light. They're luminous. So their world is almost too bright to open your eyes and look at. They don't focus on the past or the present. They are way beyond time. They are what I call multidimensional. What that means is, instead of waiting for something to happen, they just literally create the frequency set that is necessary to make that thing happen. When they want to see where something is going to end up, they have the capacity personally, as well as with their technology, to be able to move the frequency interactions ahead and see exactly where that's going, what the outcome is going to be. And they'll see maybe even several outcomes. And that they're way beyond time. They're not limited by time at all. We have to wait for things to happen because that's just the way we are. Not them. They're way beyond time. It's what I call multidimensional. They have a creator mentality. They're beyond personal responsibility. They are creating on purpose because I said so, kind of thing. They interact with both the fourth and the sixth dimensions, and they are interstellar in their approach to life and their technology. So does that give you an idea, Pat, of what? Yeah, okay. There's fine differences. I see a lot of people, I think probably a lot of you guys are among them, that are making those transition steps toward becoming fourth dimensional. Still, really in the third dimensional world, but beginning to say, now, wait a minute here, this isn't how I want to live. And so getting what I call sassy about what you want and making things happen.
Sassy.
Yeah.
You sassy beast, you.
Yeah, right.
That was perfect, Penny. That was perfect.
Good.
I think we need to listen to that at least another 10 or 100 times over to get that to sink in. We got to re-listen to that. And Daphne posted the link, which I've posted, restreamed all over the place, to your book called This is Planet Earth book. It's a PDF book, right?
Yeah, it's in both physical. You can get it on Amazon, but you can also get it from my website. It's PDF form. So.
And is that where you're explaining the dimensions in that book?
It's where, I recount I think the last 2 chapters, maybe, my experiences on the new earth, going there, finding it, getting there, the lessons I've had a few more since then that are not in the book. But it talks in some detail about what I found there, everything from that first wow, well,
that first time when you were sitting on the roof.
Yeah.
We discussed that in one of our sessions, and I loved that story. But
Okay.
Brad says here, do 4 and 5D folks eat meat? Good question, Brad.
No, a lot of them don't even eat. They just take in energy. The food changes. In 3D, people eat, they're subject to their DNA. Okay. If you're going to be healthy and you're going to be long lived, you have to supply your DNA with the frequencies it needs. And meat has certain frequencies. You don't have to eat a lot. I tell people, don't tie yourself to a particular diet. Use all of the diets to accomplish what you need to accomplish to get supremely healthy. And you have to be, if you're going to eat meat, you better be pretty humble, because that's somebody who knows that it's being eaten. That consciousness does not go away just because that animal is cut, wrapped, and frozen in your freezer. So keep that in mind. In the fourth dimension, what happens, and this actually, I knew this before I actually went visiting to see fourth dimensional people trying to observe. It is possible to inject frequencies of everything you need for perfect health, and not just everything you need, but everything you specifically need. And that gets around all of your allergies, and that restores all of your, shortcomings in terms of years of bad diet. You can put frequencies in water, you can put it in a paste, you can put it in something else. People in the fourth dimension grow food, mostly vegetarian food, in a very high frequency environment. It's amazing when you see their food. And when you eat it, most people here eat food and then they're like, I'm tired. So not there. When you eat food in the fourth dimension, you feel like you have, I don't know, I'll just say, I felt like I had drank some bubbly of some sort. Bubbly just being a term that said I felt like I was effervescent. My energy was effervescent. It was a huge, noticeable difference. And they also not only grow food, plants in a very specific energy environment, but they have what I'm going to call supplemental things that they eat that have extra frequencies in them that boost the consciousness. Okay. In the fifth dimension, those people don't eat much at all. They will eat as a form of celebration. I can't think of another way to say it. Like they'll have, like, say you had your parents were living in the fifth dimension and they came to visit you for Christmas. They would generate food for that Christmas celebration. And then they would just take in energy. You just breathe in energy the rest of the time. There are some in the fifth dimension who do still eat some highly energized things, but it's not common. And on the New Earth, when I went there and I was looking for something to eat, one of the people I ran into said, well, do you need to eat? And I was like, yeah, I'm hungry. They do still eat in the fourth dimension. So
I had Jazz Maheen on the show a few months ago. Do you know Jazz Maheen? She's a breatharian. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. So she's
one of my friends is here in Kalamazoo. Yeah.
So she's evolved her consciousness and her body structure beyond the need to eat. And which in the third dimension, people just don't believe. So, over the years, she's just had so much ridicule. Like, you're a liar, you're a charlatan, you're just doing it to make money. It's impossible. It's impossible. All the scientists come out and say, this is impossible. And we're going to tell you why. So she's a liar. Like, she's just had but she said, I didn't set out to not eat. I just set out to raise my consciousness. And the effect was I didn't need to eat. And so she calls it source fed. So I'm fed by source. I'm source fed. She said, if I want to have a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit, for the celebration of it, I can, and I will, but it's not necessary. Yeah. But, Pete, what you're talking about, Paul says this discussion about seeds taken from crop circles. Oh, we'll get into that with Patty. Yeah. I read this book and I had Samuel on the show. So a French-born Australian guy in the 80s was taken by a group of highly evolved extraterrestrials, highly evolved civilization to their planet called Thea Uber. And they called them, it was a category 9 planet. And they are the overseers. I think they're confirming they're your mates as well. It didn't say that they were Palladians, but I asked the mob and they said, yeah, Palladians. But and they talked about the categories. And what you're describing is actually described in that book. Exactly. And it didn't say that they're in the fifth dimension. And it's kind of odd when people talk dimensions and categories and everyone's talking about, I'm talking to beings from the 18th dimension and the 100th dimension and the 56th dimension, and there's all these numbers that everyone's talking about. And I said to the guides, I was having a chat with the guides, and they said categories is not the same as dimensions. And I said, oh, and then I didn't continue that conversation because I was busy. But so when I'm hearing you talk about fifth dimensional consciousness, or even fourth dimensional, it's like they're a high fourth dimensional civilization. They have complete dominion over how to regenerate their physical structure. They live for hundreds of years. They're 9 foot tall. They have a different gravity. They can levitate at will. They did say that does take effort, so that they have created a technology that can levitate them, they can travel wherever they want. But it is a technology that they hold and press, and that creates an anti-gravitic toroidal field around their body. It's not something that you step on. It's like an energy technology. And when you're talking about the way they eat, that was exactly his experience. So he's a physical human being going to this planet and experiencing that. Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. It's so, so. Paul, did you want to?
Different. It is different. The only I love the world that we have. It's a very good world for learning. It's the experiences that I hear people talk about are really wonderful in many ways. I mean, right now we're having some difficulty, but that hasn't always been the case. That's just been the last couple of years. And what I hear a lot of that I wish I heard less of is people talking about they're never going to give up this, and they move into the future as if it's going to be the same as what we have now, and the concepts are the same and the assumptions are the same. And I think, have you just not realized that everything changes? Just even, my grandmother and her comment when she was watching the moon landing thing, the photos or video or whatever it was, and she's just standing there. It's like, wow, okay. When I was born, we were riding in horse and buggy. I had button-up shoes and floor-length skirts. Now men are walking on the moon. In just 100 years, she lived to be 100. She was probably 90 at the time. And that was only 100 years. What's life going to be like in another 100 years? Totally different reason for being, totally different routines and lifestyles and houses and, relationships and technology. And it's like, come on. We're going to the future and we want you to go with us. So we have to stop trying to recreate the past.
Yeah. God, yeah, absolutely. There's a question here on YouTube about the solar flash. Do we want to get into that from Clever Gypsy Guy? Anyway, great name. Question: does Penny see anything about the solar flash between now and 2028?
The soul of flesh.
Yeah, the coronal mass ejection. The what we've discussed it. What do we call it? The
micronova.
Micronova or macronova. Yeah, the micronova.
Yeah. I have seen that there's a threat of that begins in 2027. If we can get together as a planet, as one consciousness, we can impact that tremendously. One of the things that in my relationship with the elves, we have elves and different divas and things like that on the farm here. And I've had this ongoing conversation with them since 1990. So what is this, 2022? So that's 32 years. Their approach, their attitude is one that says, come on, we're waiting for you to come back to the conversation. We don't know what you need. We don't know what you want. We don't know when we're getting out of hand. We're just having a good time. We have power and we're playing with it. And so I think what we need to do, one of the things, is to begin to communicate with everything. Everything. And that includes the weather, the wind, the sun, the rain, the snow, just the air, the temperature, etc. Why aren't we communicating in such a way that they know what we need? And you're seeing all kinds of manipulation happening. They have said, well, nobody else is telling us what to do. I was just floored at that. I thought, oh, wow. So back to the sun, if we can come up with enough people, I think, reaching that consciousness that says, hey, my friend, don't blow up on us. Don't send out this huge pulse of energy. We want your energy, but don't hurt us. Do no harm. That kind of thing. That's really, I think we could impact that micronova to a tremendous degree. Would there be maybe some disruption? Yeah, maybe. Would we lose the number of people that a micronova would cause? No, not even close. So that's a long time ago. When I was younger, much younger, I had 2 kids. This was long before Kundalini. And I thought, oh, the world is overpopulated. I cannot have any more children. Well, as it turned out, I happened to be a fertile myrtle. So 2 years later, I had 2 more children. So the result was that I was talking to some of my people about I'm sorry, I contributed to the overpopulation of the world. And they said, oh, no. We're trying to get your population up. You're going to need all of that consciousness to make something happen in your future that you're going to need to make happen. And they didn't say what, but I can't help but think that they're referring to the interaction between the earth and the sun. I just think we have all these people here and all that wonderful consciousness. Maybe some of it is not quite awake yet, but we still have a few more years and people are waking up left and right. We have at least a 50-50 chance of being able to impact how our relationship with the sun, the moon, and the other planets unfolds over the rest of our lives, over the life of the planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a fabulous point, Penny, that you say about because everyone's talking about overpopulation, and you've just made the point that the more conscious people on the planet, the more hope we've got in
more power,
in not having the disasters that have been predicted. Because I think the robes, is a warning. And with many people I've had on the show, when they were younger, they were given this warning from angels, ETs, higher civilizations, that you're heading on a trajectory that if you don't get your act together consciously, we're at power here to let your planet burn. And I think that what's happening with the micronovas, I had Dolly, this other woman, other ET contactee on the show, and she's like pretty sure it's going to hit and the ETs are going to pick up. Like that's her timeline. But what I'm hearing is that, the sun is unstable and it's already doing it, but we're actually being protected by a technology that's beyond our understanding, and will continue to be protected as long as we stay on this consciousness expanding trajectory.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the more conscious awake people on the planet, the better. So yeah.
And I would also point out, if people have not listened to some of the demographers talking about demographics on planet Earth, we are losing population. The one fella that I think is worth listening to is Peter Zeihan. Zeihan, maybe Zeihan. He talks about demography and all those issues. Very interesting stuff. And he says, China doesn't have as many people as they say they do. Neither does India.
Yeah.
Nobody does. Everybody's inflating their numbers to pretend that they are invulnerable. And he said they're not there.
Well,
They're
that's exactly what Samuel. So the guy that came on that talked about the Saya Uber prophecy, you know, because Michel Demarquet, who was the guy who was left his body in 2018, and Samuel's taken up the mantle, you know, and running with it, expanding the messages in this book. He's a Chinese guy living in the States. And we talked about that. And it's exactly what he said a couple of weeks ago. There is not 1.5 billion Chinese, there's under 1 billion. You know, the Chinese government inflate it to make them look powerful. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah. And when you look at how they count, it's like, oh wow. Okay, that's not very reliable.
Let me look at the questions, because there's a couple of questions here. Paul, you want to come on, hon, and ask your question? Where are you? You want to come on camera?
Hi, sure.
Hi.
Hi, Penny. I was just curious if you would be willing to share your perspective on the Schumann resonance, and if you think there are things that we can learn from it, like the patterns in it, or some people even see kind of images in it.
Yeah, I don't pay a huge amount of attention to that, just enough to kind of keep one eye on the frequency that we are being exposed to. It does go up and down. Some of them are really intense. And the body does respond. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, a lot of your immune system responds to all the changing of that frequency. But the main thing, you know, it's interesting that people see all kinds of stuff in it. I've heard a few of those and thought, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. But in terms of science, I like science. The thing that says to me is that when a planet and sun are going to have a change in their relationship, it shows up in the frequencies. And the fact that those Schumann frequencies are up as high as they are now, either we were not very good at measuring before and they haven't changed at all, or things are changing pretty dramatically. And we will continue to be subjected to these little pulses that help us make that, what would I call it? Make the change to a higher frequency being a little more easily. So that's just how I see it. I can't say much more because I don't really follow it. So the only thing that I really follow are the guys that are tracking the poles, the movement of the poles. Wow. That does concern me. So
that's actually a question I've got on YouTube. But Paul, you said also there's something about the seeds in the crop circles.
Oh yeah, I didn't have a question about that, but I just mentioned that it was, I found it really fascinating, the discussion about how the seeds taken from the crop circles were really resilient.
Wow.
And just curious, actually, if you had any more information about how you think that's being caused.
Yeah, well, it's caused, I don't know if I said it like this, but just kind of briefly, when those seeds are hit with with crop circle energies, the crop circle energy is a vortex, a rotating vortex of 6 or 7 different kinds of energies. Some of them are microwave, some of them are electrical, some of them are magnetic, some are heat, thermal gradient. There's all kinds of energies circulating. And if there's a lot of microwave energy in that vortex, those seeds can get hit pretty hard. So the seed is a living system. It's alive. And what it does when it gets hit with the tremendous burst of and microwave energy is transform itself. It shuts down. It will not germinate for about 6 weeks because it's busy not only detoxing all of the waste products that it is suffering from this massive, electrical hit. It's like kind of being electrocuted by them. The seeds are electrocuted, sort of. And they are redoing their entire energy system. so that when they are done with that whole process, man, they're ready for anything. You know, drought, cold, heat, too wet, molds, mildew, bacteria, not enough germ in the actual seed. They'll tough it out and grow. It's amazing. And then they produce huge increases in crop with a much better taste. And some of that crop is 70% more in terms of the actual output of the crop to 400% more. So that's a lot.
Wow.
Related to what you said about the different dimensions or densities, I wonder if, you know, the intense energy that it's being bombarded with kind of allows it to tap into higher realms. Or...
It does, and you bring up a good point. Every single human, plant, animal, seed, every single system, energy system, is always looking for more energy. Always. Why? Because every single system knows that if it can get enough of a boost in energy to reorganize itself at a higher level, then it's going to do that. So we here in the third dimension, we end up stealing, you know, or clobbering one another to take energy away from others. It doesn't work. We don't end up getting the benefit of that reorganization that has to occur. But plants, animals, like Kundalini, that's what Kundalini does. It gives the entire system enough energy to completely reorganize in a flash, in a few seconds. It's a rough transition afterwards, because all your chemistry is different, all of your electrics are different, everything is different. It's your consciousness, oh my. But you function at a higher level then. And that's what the seed does. That's what people who get hit by lightning experience. They reorganize, they at a higher level. They're almost always psychic, healers, all kinds of stuff that they see and know and can do. So we are energy hungry. And that when a plant, a seed, can reorganize at a higher level, and this is some work, I forget, I think it's in Jamaica that this was actually documented. What they saw was that the plants who were hybrids were returning to their original, like 10,000 years ago forms of plant. They took on an entirely new persona, an entirely new function, an entirely new way of presenting their leaves and the structure of their leaves and their fruits. So it was like a transformation right there, just from having access to that boost in energy.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
It is. It's pretty amazing. We're learning a lot. Dr. Levengood used to say, we don't need to be experimenting on humans. Plants will teach us everything we need to know. And I think he was right.
Plants will teach us everything we need to know.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Thanks, Paul. Did you have any other questions?
Thanks.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
No,
So there was a question on YouTube from Eminem. Can Penny discuss the pole shift and what she's seeing now? Thanks.
Oh, okay. So we're moving right toward that pole shift. We don't know how that's going to go. What usually happens, what the science says happens. Now, I don't know if this is true, okay? The science says the poles flip and then they flip right back. Well, we have evidence that they don't. So other scientists will say, well, the poles, they start moving around, they start breaking up. So I think right now we have 2 or 3 north poles actually functioning and 2 or 3, maybe 2 south poles that are functioning. And what happens is they attract one another. Right now, the 2 major attractors are coming out of the North Pole and headed down through Siberia and and that North Pole is about to meet the South Pole and is it the Indian Ocean? I think it's the Southwest Indian Ocean, something like that. Other people have said, no, it's going to be off the coast of South America. When two poles meet, they don't merge. They dance around one another. They spin. And then for whatever reason, at some point in time, and we don't know enough to know why, but they split and they go off in two different directions. So the North Pole goes one direction, the South Pole goes another. If that happens to be, the North Pole goes over to Ecuador, say, and the South Pole goes over to what's on the other side of the planet from Ecuador. Let's say China, something like that, or Japan, or whatever. I don't think that's correct geographically, but whatever's on the other side of the planet, that would be the new North and South Pole. The planet would tip. We would have a whole new climate situation, et cetera, et cetera. We'd be forced to move to those locations that are reasonable weather. And that's as much as we can say at this point about how they interact. What we do know is that typically when the poles get below the 40th dimension, 40th latitude, I think it's latitude, they don't go back up. They end up going the rest of the distance toward whatever their opposite pole is, dancing around. And I think right now the poles are moving at such a rate that they are predicted to meet either off the coast of South America or off the coast of India, between India and Africa, in April of 2023. We have no idea what will happen at that point. They might just hit, bounce, spin a little, and go back where they were. They might hit and trade positions, in which case the planet would begin to spin the other direction. We'll see what happens. Could get messy. But we're at a point now where we just, I think I'll say this, I probably shouldn't say this. We have not been, the population has not been notified or let in on any conversations that scientists, politicians, cabal people, or anybody else might be having with ETs who are knowledgeable. ETs make it their business to study planetary systems, star systems, solar systems, and what happens in those systems. And they have millions of years of data about what goes on. We don't, the population, we're in the dark. We don't know. I'm hoping that somebody's talking to those people who have access to that ancient data. I know that that data is available in a few places. I don't know if they're ever going to share that with us. So, yeah, the history is a mystery.
The history is a mystery. Well, we've gone out there today, Penny. We've kind of gone the galactic perspective, the Earth perspective. We've been the sort of, I want to bring it, just before we go, I want to bring it back to the personal perspective. So you and I have discussed many times your Kundalini awakening and how intense that was for you, and expansive and explosive. And, everyone has a different experience with Kundalini. And I have friends here in Sydney now who are doing a new sort of healing or experience thing called CAP, which is Kundalini activation process. And what they're doing is they're getting groups of people together and they're activating people's Kundalini deliberately, like in a kind of a group setting. And so coming back to the personal and who we are as humans evolving, do you want to talk a little bit? And Lisa has a question here too, exactly dovetailing. Lisa, did you want to come on camera? I don't know where she is. Where is she? Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa. I'm mute.
Yeah, do you want to come on camera, hon? You're talking, but we can't hear you. You got to unmute.
Can't hear you. There. Whoop, do it again. There you go.
There you go.
Hi, Penny. How are you? Hi, Karen.
Hi. I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Yeah, my question was in regards to twin flames, Kundalini awakening, and the role in the new earth. I'm getting lots of messages around this.
Okay. Well, you're probably not going to like what I have to say.
Yeah.
So, if you meet somebody who is a spark for your energy system, you will think you have met your twin flame. And the love, the intensity of the love, the sexual experiences are off the charts. And then once that Kundalini is awakened you, that person usually leaves.
Yeah.
I have never in 40 years had an instance where the person who triggered the Kundalini stayed with the person who was awakened. The heart gets broken. The heart gets broken open. The reason the heart gets broken open is to teach you that that intense love that you're trying to pin on that individual is to be shared with everybody. And you can't try to make that just be a one-on-one thing with you and the great love that you think you found. And so it's problematic. Years involved. You know, there's all kinds of sorrow, and once you turn on Kundalini full blast, you will experience love like you have never loved before.
Oh, wow.
It's unconditional. The person doesn't have to do anything. I mean, there's some stories I could tell you that you can make your hair stand up. So just know that the person who awakens the twin flames, typically one of two things is going to happen. They're going to part and never see one another again. Or if they do manage to stay together, the relationship becomes absolutely asexual.
Yeah.
So, you know, once somebody is awake, the other person can't keep up with the growth, with the intuition, with the knowing, with the skills, the abilities, the changes in perception and worldview, and how you see and think the world should be and how you want to live. And so that's problematic right there. You know, the person who woke you up, turned you on, disappears and leaves you turned on. And that's just, I mean, it's an amazing gift, but you talk about intense and real Kundalini. When Kundalini really happens, it typically is going to scare the daylights out of you because it is something that cannot be controlled. And that is, I can't count the number of people who have, that I've ended up with in my office or, you know, working with long distance, and they are absolutely terrified or on the edge of suicide because their entire body-mind system is completely out of control. And they can't make themselves think anything or not think. They can't make themselves do or not do. They are totally at the mercy of this energy. And it is frightening. I will say that my own self took a long time to be able to get comfortable with the way that I was. I wasn't happy about those changes for 17 years. And then when I realized this is the way it is, actually, I had gotten a message saying, quit trying to go back to your idea of a normal person. You are a normal person. This is what the norm should be. All the rest of those people are suffering from arrested development. And at that point, I thought, oh, okay.
Arrested development. I love it.
Yeah.
I love
don't
it.
like to say that because it's kind of an insult, but
you say it's frightening. And I want to correct you a little bit and say it can be, but because a lot of people don't have the explosive as you did.
That's true.
And I didn't. And I don't know if I have all the abilities that you have, but I've got a lot of them, and I didn't have any of that sort of explosive. I did have some, you know, like, and I intentionally set out to expand myself. And when I expanded myself to beyond the beyond, then I had to like bring it back. And Don and I think we discussed that on the last show. And because the crazy sort of telepathy and empathy was just out of control, and like going out into public was crazy. And
I know.
You got to rein it in, and you got to focus it, and you got to direct it, and you got to raise your vibe and clean up your thoughts. And there's a whole lot.
Did she say that, or did I just know that? You know, whoops. I thought you told me that.
and then the kids are coming in already activated, you know, like, so they don't even have to have Kundalini awakenings. They're already a different human, right? They're different. So everyone's at different stages. And
that's true. That's true. The Kundalini that, you know, in terms of twin flames, what happens when you wake up? Kundalini wakes you up and makes you super aware of everything. Now, what I tell people is you will never fall in love again, ever.
Right.
You will be forced to choose because you're too aware. Falling in love implies, oh, he's wonderful, or she's this, or that, whatever, and you're swept away. Once you're awake and aware, you will never be swept away again.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, but it doesn't lead to great romance.
Yeah, but the great romance is the one in the mirror, right? That's the great romance, and that's what.
There you have it. Actually,
right. That's the romance. It's between you and you, and you and your higher self, and you and your broader perspective. And you know, Michael Tamura said something. I've had him on the show 8 times, but the thing that resonates of all the things he said was, I asked him about older women looking for love, because I know so many older women that are looking for their soulmate, right? And he said, well, I'm like a younger woman who's looking to make babies and all that sort of thing. It's a different intention, you know. And what they don't understand is they're actually seeking a love that's already within them. They're seeking to express love, and they're seeking it in the partner instead of just expressing it in the world. And so you just got to stop looking for that love in the partner and just express the love that you are, as you're doing, right? You express it in your work, in your art, with your family, with your children.
That's right.
In everything, you just express that love that you're looking for. Stop seeking it and start living it.
Yeah. A lot of people need a partner because they can't pay their bills, or they need help. You know, I wish I had somebody who was 6 feet tall all the time, because I can't reach anything without dragging this stupid little stool everywhere I go. You know, things like that, or muscles. You know, I so love men and their muscles. Oh my gosh. You know, I'm a wimp. I used to be a lot stronger, but now that I'm older, I'm really turning into a wimp. And so women want things that are practical, and they, you know, and they want somebody to talk to and share with and bounce ideas off of, and all that is legitimate, but that's all out there in every single person that you run into.
Exactly.
So I love people. I'm in love with the planet and the planet's people. And it's a passion that I can't even explain. So.
Well, this is the last question. Sherry, do you want to come on and ask your question, and then we'll let you go? Penny, it's been so delightful to catch up with you. Oh my God. I could talk to you for another 50 hours. Where's Sherry? Where are you, darling? Here you are.
Sherry.
Hi, Penny. Really good to see you. I was listening to your last look-see, and I know you were really kind of disheartened with how, I guess, people, the inaction maybe of people or that type of thing, and just wondering what one main thing you could think of we could all do for a more positive change.
That's a really good question.
Great question.
I have, since that look-see, come to this other perspective. And the other perspective is one that says, or I should say I've evolved my perspective a little bit. I think we're doing what we need to be doing, which is nothing. The powers that be are doing their damnedest to try to get us to react, to explode, to take them down, to destroy this, to do blah, 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 so that they can bring in their new world order. And we're all sitting there like a bunch of bumps on a log, and I think appropriately so. So where I was like, come on, you guys, come on, nobody. What I started looking for is, okay, what are we doing? And that's what led to me, what I said earlier today, which is, well, there's this group working on the new economy, and there's that group working on networking. There's this group working on new medical stuff. This group is doing new educational stuff. This is, we're doing the justice and ethical stuff, governance. All these groups are doing different things. Somebody's talking about building communities for like-minded people. It's starting to come together. And so why should we accommodate the fools that think they're manipulating us? Yeah, people are angry. They're frustrated, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe that is just what we need to be doing. And the other perspective that I got recently was it was just an off the wall, offhand comment from somebody saying, can you see that the FBI is trying to get Trump reelected? And my initial reaction was, what? Et cetera. But once I started to think about that, they've made key moves at just the wrong moment, or just the right moment, that utilize the bad boys to make them look like idiots, and that benefit Trump. And they have done that a couple different times, and I thought, they aren't stupid. So, and they know that there's a tremendous amount of danger in speaking up, standing up, pushing back against the powers that, because they just, the cabal just kills anybody who gets in their way. And so they are doing something that when they raided Trump's home and everybody was, oh, that's terrible, it really helped Trump. They also announced that they opened the Clinton, way back before Trump was elected, they opened the Clinton investigation right before Trump was elected. And there's, Trump is working, et cetera, et cetera. And there's things I don't like about Trump, but I'm not into the personalities thing. I'm looking at what are people doing and where's the whole thing going. And what I see is that there's another level of game being played here that I didn't see before. And that was a huge surprise. So now I'm watching and thinking, okay, let's just see, are there any other signals that say, yeah, we're going along with you, but we're going to undermine where we can. And they're doing that in a way that doesn't get anybody killed. So we'll see what happens. So
okay, that sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah.
That's a funny one. Oh, honey, it's been such a delight catching up with you. Honestly, it's just been so beautiful. I just want to tell you what Don said here. Loving Penny. I feel like the Grinch that had my heart grow 5 times its size. She is so amazing. So, Don, do you want to come on camera and say hi to Penny? No, he's just been on my show anyway.
Yeah,
God, love him.
I understand. If it's somebody else's show, I'd be shy too. It's like, no, that's about them, not me.
Oh, loving Don. Sachin and Diane sending love, lots of love. Thanks so much, and lots of love coming from all the comments on YouTube and Facebook. Loving every moment. Thank you so much. Loving you. Love. Lots of love. Well, we're generating lots of love today.
That's what we need. Oh my gosh, that is what the entire world needs.
The world needs love. That's that's what we can do. I mean, that question right at the beginning, you know, what can we do? That's what we can do. We can express that love that we're all looking for in the partner. Instead of looking for love or looking for fulfillment or you know, security and the money and the job in the partner, instead of looking for it outside yourself, express what's inside you, because it's all there, right? It's all within us. Everything we think we want, we already have, in the form of vibrational essence. Just expressing more love. Kim, thank you so much. Diane, thank you. Pat, absolutely. It's been great. Thank you so much, Penny. Deborah, Penny, you are so humble and wonderful. I love you. I love you.
Oh my, it's been a rough road. You know, you get your edges sanded off along the way.
A bit of sanding. Thanks again. Thanks, Daphne, too, for helping out today and being online. It's been beautiful. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody live streaming now and stop the live stream.
Okay.
And we'll just have a bit of a chat with the group. Stop the live streaming. Thank you all again for joining us on the live stream. Big love.